I was on a farm.
Where?
Out in Levis, but we lived all over. We moved about every 2 years. I went to many different grade schools. But my dad tried to farm, but it didn't work very good. He was definitely an expert at mason work and laying bricks and stuff. And I was born in Elkhorn, Wisconsin. And we lived in Delavan. And my dad was in the mason work then. And he did really well. And then his brother up here talked him into coming here farming. But farming was never his. You know, we were very poor. Just never made any money farming. And so I ended up helping my dad, Joe and Gertie Brotsvin. He was 6 foot and she was 4'9", I think it was. Yeah, yeah. And he had red hair and I was oldest of 7. And we were on a farm in Christmas. I was my dad's right hand. I learned to milk cows, work in the fields, shocking corn and grain, and I was just, and my mom, I was her right hand, washing clothes with a scrub board and hanging them on. We didn't have a clothesline, we hung them on the fence. When my siblings talk about the fun they had in the barn and the grain rooms, I wasn't there because I was my mom's help. So my dad was I got a spanking once when I was 5 years old, and never again. He never laid a hand on me. I just said I was sorry, and never again did he ever lay a hand on me. But I respected my dad and my mom, very much so. Just, I did whatever he wanted me to do. We moved around. We were up in Price and Levis and out in Tracy Valley, and yeah, we moved around. And then my dad, when he quit farming, then he laid bricks for different ones. Yeah, he was excellent at that. He was a perfectionist. Their dad and mom came from Norway. Yep. And they lived out in Kings Valley. He was 5 years old when he came over. And he remembered everyone being on the ship that was sick. They were throwing up. And he wasn't. He remembered that. Yeah. And then my grandpa settled in Viroqua, Wisconsin, up by La Crosse, and then they moved up here. And then they were on a little farm out in Kings Valley. So, and his dad played the violin very well, but he was very religious. So every time he'd pick up that violin and start playing, then he'd say, "God, forgive me," and then he would quit because he was playing music that he didn't think God would like. He was a shoemaker in Pigeon Falls, and he would come to our house a couple times a year and always bring candy, but he would just hand us one piece. Each one had one piece, and then he'd keep the candy, and then he'd give it to my mom for her to distribute. Nikolai, yep, Nikolai Brotsvin, and he was a shoemaker. And I was 5 years old, and then when we moved up here from Delavan, then we lived with them out in Kings Valley. But my mom and her mother-in-law did not get along. She was very controlling, my grandma was. And my mother was Swiss, full-blood Swiss. And she was in a neighborhood of Norwegians out there. And they wouldn't accept her. They would invite her to coffee, but they would all talk Norwegian, so she wouldn't understand them. So then she had a neighbor lady, Hattie Hoofsklus, that was her best friend, and she would take care of my mom's part. And so then eventually we moved from there then. We moved up by Fairchild. Her dad was a cheesemaker, and at that time the only cheese they made was Limburger and Swiss cheese. Yeah. So I was raised on Limburger and Swiss cheese. She worked in a boarding school where he stayed, okay, and she was cook. And when they got married, she, after the ceremony or whatever, it wasn't much of a ceremony, she cooked their own dinner, their wedding dinner. She fixed chicken, and ever since then, she always made very good chicken. Yeah, I went to kindergarten in Delavan. Yeah, and then I would stop on my way home from kindergarten and talk with my grandpa Albert, my mom's dad. Yeah, he was a wonderful man, just a very gentle, wonderful man. Yeah, and he ran a nursing home. And my youngest sister, I was 16 when she was born. She was born at home, and the doctor did not bring any anesthetic or anything for my mom. And I was 16, I was in the next room when she was one that, when she had labor pains, she screamed to no end. And so she thought, oh my God, Esther's never going to want any kids. And I ended up having most. I have 4, and all my siblings have 2. I went to a Levis school. I started in 4th grade, and I ended up graduating from there, Levis school. In fact, not too many years ago, when my brother was still alive, he came here, and he wanted to go out and see the Levis. And the old pump was still there. And took his picture standing by the pump at Levis. Yeah, yep, in the Levis school. We used to walk to school in the cold, and then we'd get there sometimes, and the teacher Helga Luckin could not make it. So then thank God for the Levis store, because then we'd go in there and warm up and then walk back home again. And I had a sister, Margaret, that did not like school. So in the morning, she'd hear my mom and dad think they were going to town. So when she'd get to school, then she got a bellyache. So then the teacher would make me walk her home. Then I'd have to walk back to school again and then walk back home. Yeah, she did not like school. We were poor, and then my mom raised chickens. And so then she'd send me to the store with eggs. And then whatever the eggs were worth, I would get groceries for. And then carry them home. So it's just not easy, but I don't regret any of those days. It made me appreciate. If a nickel then was really a lot of money for a kid, you know. Yeah. Go to walk to the Levis store a lot. Then we had neighbors, you know, and the kids about the same age. And then I can remember one time, I was 10 years old, and our horse was foaling, going to have a colt, and it was midnight. And my dad said it was having trouble, so he needed help. So at midnight, he told me to walk over to the neighbors. I had to walk along the creek and along the field, over to the neighbors, and go in the house and wake up Kelmer Rindall so he could come and help my dad with the horse. And my kid said, at 10 years, I would have never done it. I said, my dad said, you go, and I went. All by myself at dark. I had to be babysitter and helper, yeah. So, but I guess it didn't hurt me. I'm 87 now, so I can. Yeah, I think so.